Hi, I'm Tina. I wanted to share with you a testimony that the Lord allowed me to be a part of. I minister in the local jail, and we have a program called the God Pod, and it is a unique program, very, very beneficial to the ladies in our area. What it is the ladies can apply to come into the God Pod, and it's a specific faith unit where the ladies receive biblical teaching 2 times a day, as well as receive ministering to by the chaplains. And so I've been going in, I think about 4 years now. I've been going in, and the story of me being called to go into the jail in and of itself is really interesting. Um, but I'm going to save that for another day. Right now, I'd like to share with you how the Lord led in a specific instance and hopefully demonstrates, well, it will demonstrate His goodness because that's just what it does. So let's get started with that. One morning, I go in on Saturday, and one morning as I was preparing to go in, I was in prayer for my time there. And I felt, as I was praying, I felt a fear begin to rise up within me. And I wasn't sure where this was coming from because we know that there is a healthy fear and then there's an unhealthy fear. And a healthy fear, a demonstration of that, an example of that would be a fear of the Lord or a fear of walking out into the middle of traffic, those kind of things. An unhealthy fear is one that binds you up in some way, and it's not healthy. It's not leading you to the Lord. It's actually pushing you away from the Lord. So I had to determine which one was this. Was this a healthy fear or was this an unhealthy fear? So I began to ask the Lord, Lord, is this healthy or is this unhealthy? What's going on with this fear that's springing up within me? I felt that as I was praying some more about this, I felt I should call my chaplain, one of my chaplains, and ask for her to pray for me. And so I gave her a call. I said, hey, this is what's going on. Can you pray for me? And so she prayed for me and she talked to me a little bit about it. And I got off the phone with her and I felt that what was happening was that the Lord was using this fear, and I believe it was a healthy fear. And He was using it to cause me to spend more time in prayer and to reach out to others to be praying for me. I also contacted a friend of mine, a sweet sister in Christ, who is so faithful to pray for me as I'm in the jail. So I contacted her. She was praying, and my chaplain was praying, and I spent an extended time in prayer as well. And so I get over to the jail that day and I enter in. You have to check in. It's a different check-in process for the weekend because the front desk isn't open. And so I check in utilizing the way that we do it on the weekends. I go in, I get all signed in and all of that, and go upstairs. I have to go up to the second floor to where the ladies are at and where the faith unit is at, or the God Pod is at. So I get up there, I step off of the elevator into the area where there's some, an area where the officers have all their equipment and everything that they need, and I need to check in there before I move down to the faith units. So I get off the elevator and I look up, the elevator closes, and I look up and everything turns off. All the power went out completely. The only thing that was on were the emergency, like the generator was on. And it really didn't surprise me because the Lord had prepared my heart for something to happen. I didn't know what it was, but I felt that there was a reason that God had me spend an extended amount of time in prayer and to reach out for additional support, prayer supports, and encouragements. So I'm standing up there and everything turns off. The security cameras are off, the lights are off, And like I said, just the generator is going now. And so just the emergency lights are on. And the officers head down the hall, and some of them, they have to start doing walkthroughs because they don't know, they don't have eyes on the tanks, on the rooms now. So they start going and doing their walkthroughs, and one officer says to me, well, what would you like to do? Would you like to wait, or would you like to go ahead and go? And I said, well, I'm here, I'm checked in, I might as well just wait. Now, in addition to this, I didn't share, the Lord had given me a specific message for these ladies. And it's the story about, or the accounts about the woman who was in bondage, had a physical infirmity for 18 years. And it says later in the text that the enemy had bound her. And so the enemy had actually bound this woman up for 18 years. And now she had become defined by her circumstances instead of by the Lord Jesus Christ. So she comes to the synagogue where Jesus is teaching. And in that setting, in that time, the teacher would sit and everyone else would stand. And the text says that she was completely bent over upon herself, and she could no wise lift herself up. There's nothing she could do. She was bent, she was broken, she was defined, and there was nothing she could do about it. So she comes to hear Jesus. Now, mind you, she's completely bent over in the back, right? And there's no way that Jesus could see her, especially because he's seated and there's a large crowd around him. So, but the text goes on to say that Jesus saw her. Now, how can that be? That Jesus saw this woman in the crowd. So he sees her, and the word in the Greek for sees, it means that he also knows her. So he doesn't only see her, but he knows her. He knows her circumstances. He knows what she's been through. He knows that she's now defined by this. And it says that he calls her forward. He calls her out of the crowd, and he heals her. And so that was a message that the Lord had given me to share with these ladies that morning. And I felt that he had a specific purpose in sharing that message with them. When I go into the jail, I really have no idea what it is the Lord's going to do that day. I pray and I ask the Lord, give me a message. Give me what these ladies need to hear. And I go, but I hold that really loosely because I know that God could do something so completely different that day. And I won't know until I'm there what it is he's going to do. Sometimes I don't even know until it's happening. So I had come with this message, and I felt that it was of great importance for the ladies to hear it. But now all the power's out, right? And so I tell the officer, okay, I'm going to wait. I would like to wait. And she says, okay, that's fine. So she starts walking away, and she's going to go down and do whatever she needs to do. And the thought comes to me, you know, Lord, I could share this message through the hatch. Now, the hatch is a medical slot. It looks like a mail slot, but it's a little bit wider and a little bit longer. And so I was thinking to myself, I could share this, I could open up that hatch and I could share the message through the hatch, because I knew they weren't going to let me into the tank because there was no way they could monitor me in there. And so that thought came to me, but I said, no, Lord, I want this to all be you. And so if you want me to share this message through the hatch, would you put that in the mind of the officer? And so after a few minutes, this officer comes back, the same one who is speaking with me. She comes back and she says, you know, would you like to share this message through the hatch? And I said, you know, that's a great idea. You know, what a great idea. Sure, let's do that. And I just thought, Lord, how? How do you do these things? So she brings me down to the tank. And she even goes and gets me a chair and gets me totally set up over. I'm like, what is this, Lord? You're totally setting me up to do this. And it's amazing. So I'm seated in the chair, I'm nice and comfy, and I open up the hatch and I begin to share the message through the hatch. Now, in these tanks, oftentimes it's loud. The girls are talking, there's things going on. And when I was sharing through this hatch, it was so quiet. There was no sound at all coming out of these gals. It was like they were just zoned in on what the Lord was saying to them through me and the Lord's message to them that day. Well, I was just finishing up, and the other officer that had let me in came up and put, and they said to me, hey, excuse me. And I said, yes. And they said, you're not supposed to be in here. And I said, I'm sorry, what? And they said, oh no, if there's anything that goes wrong at all, protocol is that no volunteers can be in here ever. They need to be escorted out immediately. And I said, oh, well, I didn't know that. And she said, it's okay. She said, why don't you go ahead and finish up here, and then I'll escort you down. This person allowed me to finish the message. God had orchestrated this in such an amazing way. And so I was able to finish sharing what the Lord had for these ladies and pray for them. And then I left. I was escorted down. And on the way down, the officer said, well, it's a good thing the elevators are still working. And I said, yeah, it's a good thing. And so I got out of there and was able to get all the way out and head out from there. And so the chaplain heard later from the girls. She contacted me. I contacted her and let her know what happened. Then she contacted me later and she said, I want you to know, Tina, that nothing like this has ever happened in the jail before. Nothing like this has ever happened before. And she said, in addition to that, there was a situation that was going on in the tank before you came with a woman who was bound up in some things. And she was the one that needed to hear the message about the woman being bent over and Jesus healing her and Jesus seeing